Hello, gorgeous. Sorry I was making all those faces. Just trying to make sure that I can move my mouth and talk to you. So this is, I don't know how to pronounce Korean, I'm afraid, but I'm just going to guess Su A. Brightening collagen mask. Oh dear, no glasses. We'll go off over this again later, but I'm seeing something about correcting hyperpigmentation in the skin, lightening and dramatically improving the skin's overall complexion and tone. It said something on the back about plumping too. So anyway, I'll go over that again afterward when I can put my glasses back on my face. Yikes. Okay. The beautiful lights of the city, I said to you in my title, and I'm going to talk about a movie again. A movie in one of my top 5 favorite films. It's called City Lights. It's a movie directed by, written by, starring, and the music composed by Charlie Chaplin. I have been a huge fan of Charlie Chaplin ever since sometime in my teenage years when my beloved Uncle Leonard was in the hospital. And my parents and I went to visit him in the hospital, and he was watching something on PBS, a show called The Toy That Grew Up. And this was a movie about silent films. I've always loved that title, The Toy That Grew Up. And they were showing a Chaplin film, and I became a huge fan, and ultimately have seen all of his films, some of them many times, and read probably every book I could get my hands on about him. Charlie Chaplin came to the United States sometime in the 19-teens with a comedy troupe. I believe they're called Fred Carnot's Comedy Troupe. One of the other gentlemen in the troupe was named Stan Laurel, with whom you may be familiar. Anyway, at the end of the tour, some of the actors decided to stay in the United States, having been offered film jobs, and one of them was Charlie Chaplin. And he started making silent movies. I can't remember how many he made, 50, 60 or so, I don't know. And then started making full-length silent films. And in 1928, The Toy Grew Up, and Al Jolson started singing in The Jazz Singer, and the silents were dead. But Chaplin didn't really... he was ultimately a comedian and a mime and a dancer, and didn't want to make that transition to talking movies. So he made a movie called The Circus, and that was well received. Pardon me. And then in what was it? I've written it down this time. 1930, City Lights. And I am going to read you a synopsis from Wikipedia, slightly altered by myself because last time when I tried to just talk off the top of my head, went all over the place and left things out, and so on and so forth. Charlie Chaplin's iconic character, as seen in his movies, is always referred to as the little tramp, and he's kind of an everyman who experiences, oh gosh, all sorts of humorous, bad situations, but he turns them humorous, and he tries to give hope to the little man, the everyman. But that is his iconic character that was known worldwide. I mean, Charlie Chaplin truly was a household name over most of the world, most of the developed world anyway. In this particular movie, the little tramp meets the flower girl and discovers that she's blind because she drops a flower on the ground and she can't find it. Later that evening, after the day he meets the flower girl, he runs into a drunken millionaire who's attempting suicide on the waterfront. He saves his life, and the millionaire takes the tramp back to his mansion and gives him a change of clothes, and then they go out on the town for an evening. Early the next morning, they're returning to the mansion and they run into the flower girl on her way to her vending spot. The tramp asks the millionaire for some money and he uses it to buy all of her flowers, and they drive her home in the millionaire's car. After he leaves, the flower girl, quite naturally, misunderstands and tells the grandmother that she's met this wealthy guy, thinking the tramp to have been a wealthy man. When the tramp returns to the mansion, by then the millionaire is sobered up and he doesn't remember him, and he has the butler throw him out. But later that very same day, they meet again, and the millionaire's drunk again, and he invites him home for a big party. The next morning, he's sobered up again. He's about to leave town on a cruise, and he has the tramp thrown out yet again. So later that day, the tramp goes to the flower girl's apartment, and he sees her being attended by a doctor. So he decides he'll get a job and he'll earn money to try to help her out, and he becomes a street sweeper. In the meantime, the girl's grandmother receives a notice that she and the girl will be evicted if they can't pay their back rent by the next day. But she hides it from the girl and doesn't tell her about it. The tramp comes to visit her on his lunch break, and he sees a newspaper story on the table about a Viennese doctor who's devised an operation that cures blindness. Then he sees the eviction notice that the grandmother's hidden and reads it aloud at the girl's request. She's, of course, very upset, but he assures her that he's got a job and he'll be able to pay the rent. And having finished his lunch break, he comes back to work, and he's late, and he's fired. So as he's walking away, a boxer sees him and talks him into helping him to stage a fake fight and telling him, if he will lose the fight, he'll give him half of the $50 prize money. But just before the fight, the boxer finds out that the police are after him. So he runs off, and they substitute a no-nonsense, real live opponent for him to fight with. And despite a valiant effort and much humor, the little tramp is knocked out and loses the fight. So some months later, he meets the millionaire again, drunk again, just returned from Europe. The millionaire takes him home, and the little tramp tells him about the flower girl being blind, and he gives him $1,000 for the operation. Unbeknownst to the millionaire and the tramp, while they were having this conversation, there were two burglars hiding in the house. And hearing about the cash, they knock out the millionaire, they take the rest of the money, and although the tramp telephones for the police, the robbers run off before the police can get there, and the butler, who didn't hear the conversation, assumes that the tramp stole the money. And by this time, the millionaire has, you guessed it, sobered up, can't remember the tramp, can't remember giving him the money, and so the tramp escapes and gives the money to the girl and says he'll be going away for a while, and later he's arrested and thrown in jail. Some months later, the little tramp is released from jail, and of course he goes searching for the little flower girl. He returns to the spot on the street corner where she used to sell her flowers, but she's not there anymore. And as it turns out, with her sight restored and the money left over, she's opened up a flower shop with her grandmother and is doing very well. And we see a rich customer come into the shop, and the girl briefly thinks, is this my mysterious benefactor? He's finally shown back up. But the man leaves with no acknowledgement, and she realizes, no, no, I'm wrong. This isn't him. Um, the little tramp wanders by and he sees a flower in the gutter outside the shop. And he reaches over and he picks it up, and he's tormented by some newsboys. And that whole little scene causes amusement with the flower girl and her grandmother. And as the newsboys run off and the little tramp turns to leave, he finds himself staring at the flower girl through the window. And his despair at not being able to find her before, it turns into joy, and he forgets all about the flower, and it just kind of falls apart. And she sees that happening and offers him a fresh flower and a coin, and that's embarrassing for him, and he tries to shuffle off. But the girl stops and hands him the flower, and he shyly takes that. And then the girl takes hold of his hand to place the coin in it. So after City Lights, Charlie Chaplin made one more silent film, mostly. He made Modern Times, but at the end of that, there's a nonsense song, which was a funny song, but it was also his statement on him personally believing that talkie movies were just a bunch of nonsense and a bunch of gibberish, and if you do a good movie, you don't really need that. But as the years passed, he finally made his first talkie, which was The Great Dictator, because he finally found something he wanted to say. And this was an anti-Hitler movie in which he plays a dictator named Adnoid Hinkel. Alrighty, City Lights is in my top 5 movies of all time, I have to say. And it's received a lot of admiration by people far more important than me. The United States National Film Registry shows it as one of the movies selected for preservation in the Library of Congress, and the American Film Institute ranked it as the 11th greatest film of all time. And in 1949, the critic James Agee referred to the final scene of the film as the greatest single piece of acting ever committed to celluloid. And I am definitely inclined to agree with that, and I hope you do too. All right, it has been 10 minutes, or 12, or 11. All right, so let's take this off and see how it did. Now, on the package, it did say that you didn't have to wash your face. Just rub the remainder in. So I'm going to do that. And then I'll take a look in the mirror. And then I'll tell you what was actually on the back side of this thing. This is one of the masks. Or it was this particular mask came in the box of goodies that Ginger sent me. My friend Ginger sent me a few weeks back. All right, let's see how I look. Wow. You know, a lot of these masks don't say anything about the fact that they are going to decrease the size of your pores. And this is another one that did that. Let me see what else it said on the back of the package. Well, it tells about all the attributes of collagen, generally speaking. And to use this mask when skin is dry, tired, or needs specialty care to achieve a smooth, healthy, and glowing complexion. All right, I might do this the night before Thanksgiving again because I'm certain I'm going to get at least 2 more uses out of this. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what they're saying. Just generally improve the overall complexion and tone. All right, now we know it gets really decreases the size of those pores too. So anyway, this one I think is a winner, as are almost all Korean products that I've tried. All right. I hope you enjoyed this today. It is truly one of my favorite movies, and that last minute, I think, I agree, it's one of the most beautiful, fantastic, great scenes ever acted on film. All right, I will see you next time. Please go watch Cheryl's video. Hers generally goes up about the same time as I do. She's supposed to be the Goober. Yeah, right. Love y'all. Bye.